Hello, this is Yaro, and welcome to another Yaro podcast. This time I'm using my laptop to record using my AI tool, which I will definitely be telling you more about very soon. It is partially a podcasting tool, as you probably can guess, since I'm recording podcasts with it. But that's not the topic for today. So I wanted to talk about business models. So you may have recently seen a podcast come out from Alex Harmozy, who you very likely know as well. He's kind of like the guy right now in the teaching business, entrepreneurship, online marketing world, and he's very good. I really like his stuff. I really like his teaching style. He's very tactical, so very practical with the kind of advice and stories and things that he gives people and teaches. And in this episode, he talked about four different business models, which frankly I also have talked about in my own teaching and training. I think we all would agree that these are the four business models, especially online. And they are one, e-commerce, so selling something physical product, software, SaaS, software as a service. You could lump AI tools in that space as well. You've got education or courses, training, influencer, creator, all those fall into that category. And lastly, agency, selling some kind of services, which can usually include coaching. So there can be overlaps. Obviously, a coaching business can sell an e-commerce product. Often, a coaching business also has a service component, whether done for you plus or coaching, and you go do it yourself. So there's overlap, but typically speaking, these businesses are they're pretty common to be separate, and people have one of them as their main income, their main focus. I personally have touched all three in some shape or form, although I really don't consider myself having any serious experience with e-commerce. So I would never attempt to teach or talk about e-commerce in any kind of serious way. I do say I've had experience because I did sell magic cards in like the very first thing I ever did online, besides eBay, which actually was also e-commerce, was selling Magic the Gathering cards on my online store. So I did have some early experience there, but it's just changed so much since then. Like we're talking 26 years ago when I was doing that. So yeah, but every other business model I've had more serious experience with. Although my software experience is pretty light because I never really had a software business, so to speak. I've sold little software tools, which is really more products that were part of my coaching teaching business, my education business, not so much a software business. And I have attempted, and actually, software has been a little bit of an enigma for me because I've often had ideas and spent some money to start building something and then kind of had to stop. There's been a couple of times where I've done that with various tools, and I'm doing it now, third time lucky. So hopefully, this time with my latest tool that I'm actually recording this with, it might be something that people use and get some value with, and ultimately we get some customers. You never know; it's still in MVP stage. So, why do I bring up all four of these business models? I think it's really important to think about how your personality fits with each of these business models. It's often not talked about, but as a person who's gone through at least three of them on some level, two of them seriously, agency and education, course, influencer business, they're very different. Although there are overlaps, the core things you're doing are somewhat similar, but they certainly make they're interesting to your personality, or they motivate you in different ways. And I say that because if you're a creator, educator, influencer, business owner, there's an element of that where you want to be teaching, you want to be in the limelight, you want to share your ideas. It's a very ego driven as well because people are reinforcing your skills, your knowledge, or whatever it is, your entertainment. And that's it's very personal. Because of that, it's often the most personally gratifying, but also one of the most dangerous ones, I think, because of the key person risk that I talked about in previous episodes of my podcast here, versus like the agency model, which I've done twice. In fact, although I've probably collectively had no, I think I've had more experience as an agency owner overall because I did spend 7 years in my first agency, and we're in like year eight, nine now with my second. So it's very close, 15 years as an agency owner, and I pretty much have done about the same, maybe a little bit less seriously the last few years, but I've done education, coaching, teaching, and the thing I've always done is content marketing, which actually fits into both business models. But the point being, if you're running a service agency, it's a totally different sort of mindset and personality type. Like it depends too. If you're doing the service yourself, then maybe you're just a you're not looking to be famous, you're not looking to teach and educate, but you can solve people's problems. You can design a graphic, you can build a website, you can code some software. You can do something online for people, versus coaching, which is way more kind of personal, and you're very much teaching things that you've lived and done, and you've got your own sort of methodology. Where freelancing, honestly, you're just trying to get a solution for people's problems by something you create. Um, and if you go as far as I've done by building a team, you're really separating yourself from it completely. Your goal is to not be the person who delivers. You don't want to be the service provider, the freelancer. You want to sit on top and own the business with a team delivering the service. So, and I think what it's important to note with those businesses, and then throw in e-commerce and software. With e-commerce, you're selling a physical product, which maybe you made, but chances are you haven't, and you're sourcing that somewhere, which means you're kind of like, I think e-commerce has always appealed to me the least, because you're kind of like just a number person. You're just trying to make the numbers work. You got to spend money to get customers. You got to buy your products and have enough of a margin. Often you're in competition with other people doing the same, so it can be a race to the bottom selling very similar products. But for some people, especially if you're a numbers person, that's the perfect business model. You don't want to coach, you don't want to sell services which require a lot of people. You just got this widget, this thing that people want to buy, and you just got to make the numbers work. So it can suit numbers people really well. And then software, I think, this one is, if you're an engineer yourself, obviously that's a great choice because you can code something yourself. And thanks to AI, that's becoming more and more of an option for all of us to potentially build something. But I do feel like software, as Alex mentioned in his podcast, the challenge with software is you tend to spend a bit of money and a bit of time building something before you can actually show it to the world. I'm living that right now. I've spent the last 3 months putting together an MVP, and I'd love to put it out to the world. But there's sort of a certain level of usefulness it has to have before you're going to get any meaningful feedback from it. So maybe perhaps with software, the situation you have to be in there is you're either raising money, you're the engineer so you can build it yourself, or you're putting in your own money. It's not like a start from scratch for the average person, where it's certainly easier to sell a service, it's certainly easier to sell a product. So e-commerce agencies, freelancing, they generally suit more general public kind of people, and more accessible in that case. And then of course with coaching, you have to feel like you've actually know how to coach something. Like, I would have not been able to be a coach the day I started online as a business owner. That would have failed. I was 20 years old and I had nothing to coach. But fast forward 7 years later, a lot of experiences, made some money, had something I could teach. Fast forward another 7 years, even more experiences, more success, bigger numbers to talk about, more experiments I've run myself, more things to teach, and I've taught more people. So I think coaching definitely tracks to people who've had lived more experience. That's obvious. So, yeah, and I say all this because I think if you're a person listening to this and you're not sure which business model suits you, and perhaps you've even tried some of these and it's not worked out, it could be because you're choosing not the best fit for you. So just understand that there are these four models, and try experimenting with them. If the one you're doing right now, if e-commerce is not working, there's no shame in switching to selling a service. It's actually a great time to sell a service because AI makes it so much easier as a one person startup to start providing a service. You can be a content marketer for other people. That can be email writing, that can be podcast production, that can be social media, that can be copywriting. You can design websites. Like, if I was starting now as a person new and I can use a tool like Replit or Lovable and literally make beautiful websites for people and just get good at prompting those tools, I would totally start a web design business for small business owners. It is such a low hanging fruit opportunity for like someone in their early 20s who wants to start something. That's what I would do now if I was back in my early 20s. But it was so hard for me to do that back then because I had to learn HTML, and the tools for building websites were way more complicated. So definitely there's more opportunities to do more technical things as an individual solo founder. And coaching, if you have nothing to teach, just don't do that. And software, generally more upfront costs. So that might not be a good fit for you unless you're planning on raising funds or you have funds yourself. All right, I'll wrap it up there. Hope you enjoyed this. I'm loving using my tool to give you these shorter updates as I learn something or feel I should share something with you. It's on the Yaro podcast, which is actually on every platform. You can get it on Spotify, on YouTube, and on what's the other one? Apple Music. So all the big three there, plus some of the other channels you can find it as well. So again, my name is Yaro, and this is the Yaro podcast. I'll talk to you soon.